It's Matt Kirkner, your host for the Tech Ed Podcast, live streaming on YouTube from the Smartforce Summit at the International Manufacturing Technology Show, the largest and longest running show of its kind in the entire Western Hemisphere. We're going to introduce our guest in just a moment, but as a way of teeing up that discussion, we've been talking all week about CNC machining, about automation, about fabrication, about heavy-duty manufacturing, advanced manufacturing. I haven't even gotten an opportunity to share that I actually got my career start in the world of manufacturing, in the world of healthcare. So we actually had a company, I was chief operating officer of a company for 4 years that was innovating products and technology in the healthcare world. If you have had a baby born in a birthing center in the last 3 decades and you had that little tag that they put on the baby to prevent them from being abducted from the birthing center, if you have had a family member who maybe suffered from dementia, was a wandering risk, and they put that same tag on that individual to prevent them from wandering out of a long-term care facility, that was our product. And we pioneered that market. So I spent, before I got into heavy-duty manufacturing, quite a bit of my career, at least several years of it, in the world of healthcare. I'm actually also married to a biomedical engineer. So my wife, Renee, has her master's degree in biomedical engineering, has 4 patents on products, 4 U.S. patents on products that she developed during that time. So that's one of the reasons, one of the many, that I've really been excited about changing gears a little bit today on the Tech Ed Podcast and a little bit less on the CNC automation manufacturing side in the traditional sense, but all kinds of things on those technologies in a really progressive sense. Our next guest here on the Tech Ed Podcast is Julie Lenzer, the Chief Innovation Officer of Advanced Regenerative Manufacturing Institute, one of the USA manufacturing institutes, ARMI they call it, and BioFabUSA. So, Julie, apologize for choking on your last name there to start out our podcast, and thank you so much for being on with us.
No worries. I've been called way worse.
Well, I'm not going to ask you what, but I find that hard to believe. You're, as I've gotten to know you, a wonderful and a lovely person, and really somebody I'm looking forward to having this conversation with. As I suggested earlier, we love the Manufacturing USA Institutes, and I want to learn specifically about BioFabUSA and ARMI, as it's called, and not the ARMI that we normally think of, but a different ARMI, the Advanced Regenerative Manufacturing Institute. So tell us about your mission, tell us about your work, what's going on.
Sure. Well, so ARMI, BioFabUSA, BioFabUSA is a program of ARMI. We're a nonprofit, and we are focused on making it practical to scale the manufacturing of cells, tissues, and organs.
Okay. Wow. So making it practical to scale and manufacture cells, tissues, and organs. So it is manufacturing.
Yep.
It is fabrication, but just a totally different application, and one that I know our audience is going to be really excited to learn about. We do have a lot of STEM students, by the way, and STEM teachers that listen in as well, so this topic is going to be right up their alley. So as BioFabUSA works to build, as you say, the scalable and consistent and cost-effective manufacturing of cells, tissues, and organs, are there specific groups that this will benefit? Where are you putting this technology to work?
Yeah, absolutely. Our goal is focused on, we've got chronic disease. So chronic disease is a real problem in the U.S. and globally.
Sure.
And with these cells, tissues, and organ therapies, we can actually treat, and in some cases, we believe we'll be able to cure many chronic diseases. And not just chronic diseases, but also traumatic injury. So we were funded by the Department of Defense because the warfighters are coming back. They're not dying, but they're coming back with traumatic injury. So,
okay.
Red blood cells, cornea, skin. And then we're also dabbling now into sustainable meat.
Oh, wow. Interesting. So tell us, how does this work? I'm sure people are just having a hard time wrapping their brain around, okay, yeah, I can subtractively manufacture a metal part for an automobile, for a car. I can use additive manufacturing to build an armature or a work holding fixture in manufacturing. I can use traditional machining, metal fabrication, all these technologies. You're doing the same thing, but you're doing it with tissues and you're doing it with cells. So talk to us about, how do you even do that?
Yeah, so, it's marrying biology and engineering, really, is what it is, right? So you can have cells coming in, and a lot of times they're stem cells or different types of cells. And the whole goal is that to have a scalable, modular, automated, and closed system.
Okay.
So we have something called a tissue foundry, and you put stem cells in one end, and you get an ACL, bone ligament, bone construct, out the other end with no human interaction. And so it is, so the automation is in data, tons of data collection, because the FDA wants to see what's going on with the process. And that's how you understand what the cells are doing as you're growing cells. Excuse me. And there's robots in some cases that
Sure.
have to insert cells into a scaffold. And then there's bioreactors that have to grow these cells. And so we've set it up so you can pull out one bioreactor and put in a different type for a different type of cell and have the same kind of setup with a strong backbone of automation. It's all run by PLCs.
Wow. So in the same technologies that we're using in manufacturing, in so many cases, we're using robotics, we're using automation, we're using programmable logic controllers, and you literally have a turnkey system where you start out with these cells, and out the other end of this manufacturing process, really, we're producing organs, and they're tissues. Okay. And then we're literally at the point now where you're able to take that and put it to work in a human being. Is that right?
We're working on it.
Okay.
So there's a lot. The FDA has to go through FDA approval because
Sure.
it goes into humans, and it's a different type of a process than traditional FDA. It's not a vaccine. It's not any type of therapy or diagnostic.
Right, new drug or whatever.
Yeah, it's not a new drug. So we have to work to get it, and we're very close on a number of products, and most of them are more tissue-based.
Okay.
Like one of our clients is doing a graft for rotator cuff injuries, for macular degeneration, all kinds of things like that. So we're starting red blood cells. We're working on red blood cells. But so the organs are still in development. We've got
Sure.
one of our clients is doing lungs, kidneys, and a heart, and actually, yeah.
So how far, and I know there's probably not a specific answer to this question, but how far away are we from somebody who maybe has suffering from heart failure, has a problem with their rotator cuff, what have you, from having a product that was grown regeneratively in their body doing the work?
Yeah, it's still probably 5 to 10 years, just because we're still working on the cost, bringing the cost down, which is, of course, the whole purpose of the automation. Not just, it's a consistency, it's a data collection, but it's also to bring down the cost. Because right now, so much of this is done and it was developed by PhDs in the lab, and so it's very manual PhDs in Petri dishes,
Right.
which is expensive.
Right.
And you can't scale that way. So much like any other manufacturing problem, right? You have to figure out how do you scale this thing, and so like I said, we've done a proof of concept. We've proven that we can do this, and now it's just bringing in the different types of cells, tissues, organs, and customizing the process for them.
So bringing in the different types of cells, tissues, organs, and bringing in the right talent, right? And that's got to be I would think, just a really unique challenge in what you're doing, right? So we can't just go to a technical college, hire somebody that's earned a robotic certification from NACTI and knows how to operate and program a robot and put them, and maybe you can, I don't know, you'll have to tell me, but put them to work. And at the same time, it's not like you can just go out and find a biomedical engineer or, somebody that's been through some STEM program, and because they may not understand the manufacturing process. It's really marrying those two. So talk to us about, who works in jobs like this, what do they need to know, and where do you go find them?
Well, so this is an incredible opportunity right now in this industry, because we are transitioning as we're starting to manufacture from PhDs and master's students that are doing these things in the lab to, once we have it automated, there's opportunities for 2-year degrees, non-degreed. And so there's biotechnicians, there's quality control analysts. And so we are working, as we're developing this industry, we're also working on developing the pipeline of workers to go with it. So our goal is to be as close in step with both as possible so that neither one gets ahead of the other.
Well, it just strikes me how similar some of these job titles are to titles we hear in manufacturing, right? We need operators, we need designers, we need technicians, we need troubleshooters. Really all of the same types of things, but with a totally different application. When you go out to a student, let's say I'm a high school student, and it sounds like, by the way, opportunities direct to workforce, opportunities through technical programs, and opportunities through advanced engineering programs as well. As you go out to the workforce and start talking to young people about these careers, what's the value proposition to even get them interested in this?
It's about changing lives. It's about saving lives. It is, and we're not understating that, right? As I said, the chronic disease epidemic in the U.S., it is an epidemic, and the transplant waiting list is like 300,000 people
Wow.
on the transplant waiting list. 20 people die every day waiting for a transplant. And guess what? Most people, especially from low-income households, can't even get on that list. And so it disproportionately affects low-income and underrepresented demographics. And so that's, when you start talking about that, you ask them, do you know somebody who's had heart disease? Do you know
Right.
somebody who has diabetes?
Right.
And they say, yeah, well, wouldn't you like to help them?
Absolutely. Yeah. What young person hasn't been touched by diabetes, by heart disease, had a parent, a grandparent who was touched by cancer tragically, and really grabbing that individual when they're really thinking about how can I make a difference. And that is the whole message. And we talk about on the Tech Ed podcast, our whole mantra is securing the American dream for the next generation of STEM and workforce talent. Part of securing that dream is keeping them healthy and creating longevity, creating healthy lives that are enjoyable to live, right? And that is the whole message and the whole route. So if I'm a student and I've got that passion, I'm interested, I'm saying, yes, I have had somebody who's been touched by one of these chronic illnesses. Yes, I do want to change the world. What kind of things should they be thinking about studying while they're, let's say, in their secondary pathway? So while they're in high school, what types of classes and competencies make sense and are a good fit?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, we're really bringing together like biology and engineering. So it kind of depends on which direction you want to go, or both and, right? You don't have to choose, which is great. So definitely science is chemistry. There's a lot of chemistry, a lot of biochemistry, engineering, mechanical engineering, computer science. We've got a lot of data that we're gathering. There's artificial intelligence. We were talking earlier about, machine learning, artificial intelligence is everywhere. But because this is such an emerging technology area, understanding how to track a healthy cell and what a healthy cell looks like from the thousands of pieces of data you have.
Sure.
We need all of that.
Absolutely. So we're not in production just yet. So a lot of this is still in the the R&D phase, the proof of concept phase, the Fda Approval phase. So if I get a job in this market space now, let's say, and I know you're actively recruiting and hiring people for that space now, and I start next week. What is my day like? What are you doing? What are people staying busy with?
So right now we're doing a lot of process development. So we're taking a look at a manual process, that somebody's got in a lab and saying, all right, how do we automate this? How do we keep humans out of the middle of this? So it involves a lot of sensor technology. So understanding, do we have the right sensors to do this? Again, the robotics to kind of move the cells and the tissues from one stage of the production. It's automated assembly line. It's not unlike cars, but it's just living tissue that we're dealing with and living constructs.
Yeah, it's really like it's Industry 4.0, but it's for the the biomedical industry. One of the things that we've been talking about for several years now, and I just love it when things that we talked about and theorized about 4 and 6 years ago are coming to pass now, was, we call it Industry 4.0, and in some ways that's really a misnomer. I mean, it started in many ways in industry in the advancements of smart sensors, smart devices that can communicate with each other without having to go to a PLC necessarily, devices that can make their own decisions, really, really advancing. And part of the message for that was, look, this isn't just industry. It's not just manufacturing, not just robotics and CNC machines and metal fabrication equipment and robotic weld cells. This technology is transforming hospitality. It's transforming retail, distribution, agriculture, and I always threw in the biomedical, and you're a perfect example of all this discussion we've had about working with smart sensors and smart devices. They have huge applications here. Are you able to share, when we talk about some of those smart sensors and devices, what types of sensors, what are they sensing, what are they measuring, what are they gathering?
Yeah, so biomedical, there's a lot in the biomedical field that we can use that are measuring, pH. They're measuring, the temperatures and things like that. But then there's also other types of, you have to measure like what is the cell putting out and in what quantities. And you want to do it in a way that doesn't destroy the cell, right? Because the cells are like very valuable, and then they're expensive. You don't want to destroy this living organism while you're trying to test what it's doing.
Right.
Yeah, so a lot of atmospheric, a lot of quality control parameters, and that again is one of the challenges here is that we still have a lot to learn about what are the critical control parameters that we have to be watching to drive a consistent product.
Absolutely.
That's a living organism.
And I can tell your experience in manufacturing, and particularly in food manufacturing, really, I mean, you can tell exactly how you're putting that to work in this new endeavor, because a lot of the things that you're talking about, pressure sensors, temperature, level and flow, pH. I mean, those are all the things. I spent a lot of time in the coatings world, actually. So in the metal finishing, powder coating, that we use those sensors ubiquitously. Do a lot of work now with food companies in training and upskilling workforces. And these are the things that they're telling me. We measure temperature. We're using PLCs. We're using SCADA. We're using PID control. All these things, and it sounds like it's really. I don't want to make it sound too creepy, but in the same way that we can shred cheese or produce cheese in my home state of Wisconsin, we work a lot with a lot of cheese manufacturers. It's all the same logic, but using it to produce tissues and organs.
Yeah, absolutely. And contamination is a big thing, as
Sure,
it is
of
with
course.
food,
You
right?
bet.
You
Yeah.
know, and a cell can easily be contaminated from the environment, which is why having a closed system is so important. That just a human, something you can bring in on your hands. We have clean rooms. I mean, we have to do these in clean rooms, and but yeah, it's just and think about food too, right? Food is actually animal muscle.
Right.
And so it's the same kind of technology.
Yeah.
We're taking animal cells, and we have some of our members, we're a membership organization, who are creating sustainable meat, sustainable chicken, sustainable fish, and even sustainable leather. We have one of our members is using skin cells from a cow to create real leather.
Right. So, and you start to think about, I mean, the applications there of, one of the biggest influencers on climate change is
Absolutely.
the dairy industry and agriculture and so on, and obviously a necessary part of our economy. And who among us would want to live without without those folks doing that? But now you're creating a way to do that on a regenerative basis. You're not having the same potential
Absolutely.
adverse impact. So there's just so many different ways that your organization is affecting the future. I know you have a lot of different programs, right? So at BioFabUSA, a lot of different education programs that are designed to inspire a new generation of technicians, of technical talent to create the workforce of the future for the important work that you're doing, that you are going to have to create. It's not like these people are out there in existence. That's what happens when you pioneer a blue sky market. You've got to create the talent on your own. Lots of different programs that you're involved with. Tell us a couple of your favorites.
Yeah, so I think my favorite is probably BioTrek. It's our high school program. That it's a project-based program, and so we introduce the concepts of tissue engineering to students, and we have them come up with a product, a tissue engineering medical product, and then sell it to us almost through a Shark Tank type thing.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So of course I love that because my role at ARMI is helping the startups.
Okay.
So it's an entrepreneurial type, but it helps them understand what are the applications, which I think is really important. It's not
Sure.
just about the science; it's about what can the science do. So I think that's probably my favorite. We did do a pilot of a certificate and apprenticeship program,
Okay.
which I love. We're working with our local community college and other university members, and our first cohort. It was as I said, it was a pilot. I'm really excited because it was all women.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah,
What do you attribute that to?
I think biology does tend to, lean women and girls tend to really like biology. But I think the exciting thing too is that, one of them was a recent high school graduate. Another was somebody that was looking to retool, change her career. And the other one was somebody who was looking to get back into the workforce after years of being at home, military spouse that was raising her children. So it really punctuated the opportunities of different people at different, we call K to gray,
Right.
To benefit from the growth and emergence of this industry.
And whether it was the project-based learning in the Shark Tank environment and coming up with the solution, the application, presenting it and selling it to a group of people, or whether it's an apprenticeship program, both really hands-on, right? So you're pulling these students in. They're not. I'm sure there's always book learning. There's always the theoretical side of things, but lots of hands-on learning. Is that really important in this particular endeavor?
Absolutely. And in fact, our booth here at IMTS is the way we get kids there is we've got a decellularized pig heart, and we say, hey, you want to hold a heart? So very hands-on, and we've got a couple of PLCs back there showing how you can program them to do what we need them to do to manufacture the cells, tissues.
So tell us about that a little bit more. When you say decellularized, which is cellular is never a word I could say very well, but decellularized, what does that mean?
So what we do, organs need a scaffold, right? They need something to organize around, a structure. Many people are familiar with maybe bioprinting, so
Sure.
you can 3D print some scaffolds. But an organ like the heart, let's say, it is so complex, and you think about the vascular system of the heart, the veins that you have to have in there to get the nourishment to all the cells, really, really complex, really hard to do with 3D printing. So one of our researchers takes a pig heart and takes all the pig cells out of it. Basically, she's created a process, Dr. Doris Taylor, to remove the pig cells.
Okay.
So it's just a protein structure that then we can reinsert human cells into to turn it into a personalized heart that your body will not reject.
Yeah, that is absolutely fascinating when you think about that technology. And then the other thing that you said was connecting. Is it what's connecting to the programmable logic controllers? You touched on that. Tell us
Yeah,
about
so
that.
all the sensors, all of the data collection and the control of this closed process has to have that backbone, if you will. So it's controlling the process, it's collecting the data, and then we have a deep cell characterization lab where we go in and analyze the data to figure out what are the key parameters and what it's the quality control system, if you will.
Yeah, it just continues to amaze me, the parallels with the world of manufacturing. The the programmable logic controllers that you're using. Blake Moret, by the way, the chairman and CEO of Rockwell Automation, one of the largest industrial controls company in the United States for sure, and one of the largest in the world in automation. He was on with us a year ago, talking about the amazing things going on in industrial control technology. You're using that same technology in the production of a heart, and then you get into the data analytics side. And you think about a machine tool, you think about a manufacturing process, all the data we can pull off of that, and then you think about the complexity of the human body and all the data that we can pull off of that. So it sounds like, in addition to just the engineering on the biology side, there's a whole data science component to this as well. Is that right?
Absolutely, yeah. And actually, Blake's on our board.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah.
Huh,
So great. I thought that was a plant. Yeah.
He's not at all. In fact, our kids went to high school together.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's what I love about this is that it's so many different disciplines that are coming together that you need to have come together to make this happen. It's not just any one path. There's lots of different pathways to get into this, depending on what your interests and skills are. And,
sure.
and I mean, everybody has kind of the things that they gravitate to. I'm a computer programmer.
Okay.
And science was actually, if this was in our science classes, I think I might have gone a different path.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing the things that young people can experience these days that they weren't able to as earlier, and certainly in my career pathway. I mean, and we had some of this, but
nothing like
watching these students walk around the Smartforce Summit has just been amazing. Anything else in your booth that you want to highlight before we touch on a few other things?
Well, we do have one of our students there. So he built one of the automation tools. So it's great. And we have one of our scientists who did this decellularization. So we have a heart being decellularized. So you can take a look at that process as well.
That's happening right now.
It's happening right now.
Here at IMTS. So anybody that can walk by and see that. So tell me about artificial intelligence and machine learning. I gave a presentation at the Top Shops Expo for Modern Machine Shop on Tuesday afternoon about how that's transforming the world of machining. You've got a background in computer science. You understand data, and certainly no space in the economy is immune from the just huge changes taking place in artificial intelligence, machine learning. Is that a component of this as well?
Absolutely. I mean, everything from vision, right? Trying to determine by looking at a cell or at a structure, is it right? Is it wrong? But the artificial intelligence, where the machine learning, it's figuring out, you have to have some human input to say whether it's right or wrong.
Exactly.
And so we have to collect a lot of data and then have people say, okay, this tissue worked. So and then backflow and say, what were the characteristics of that? What were the operating parameters? And so we can really start to get closer to more control and pulling things out of the process when it's not working, or identifying early problems so that we don't waste materials.
Yep, and that's really what AI is all about. In fact, I was presenting the other day. I said, look, what it really is it's about taking the data we have now, predicting the future, and then figuring out if we like that future. And if we don't like the future, let's change what we can now and create a different future. And we're really able to do that. And to your point, really, really important in the whole biofabrication world, where the cost of failure, or just like in manufacturing, but exponentially, the cost of continuing a process that ultimately isn't going to yield a result, costs you time, and it's going to cost you materials, really valuable materials in your case.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, a human heart requires trillions of cells.
Amazing.
Trillions.
Huh.
And it's not, right now it's still pretty expensive to differentiate the stem cells into heart cells and to have them grow. So while the cost will come down, it's just not materials. They're precious materials. You don't want to waste them.
Absolutely. And they'll always be precious, but you're right. I've got to believe the exponential economy will be alive and well in your work, where products double in price performance every 12 to 18 months, in the same way that an iPhone costs half as much as it would have 2 years ago to do the same thing. I'm sure the same thing is happening in your world. So the costs will come down over time, which is great news, because it's going to democratize this technology for the masses over time, and really change lives. And it's, even if we are 10 years away from from being able to use this in a human body, that's a really short period of time.
Yeah, I mean, but I think like meat is a lot closer, right?
Right.
So imagine in food insecure areas,
Right.
if you can have a process that's scalable and you can have the cells, then it can create meat where you might not be able to to have it otherwise.
It's just hard to wrap your brain around. And in terms of things hard to wrap your brain around, as you've walked around IMTS this week, Julie, and just seen all the amazing technology, I've tried to take as much of it in as I can. Like you, I've spent a lot of time here in the Smartforce Summit, so a little less time up in the main body of the show. But is there technology that you've seen here that you're like, oh my goodness, it's really hard to believe we're able to do that?
So I'm a geek. I love this technology.
You don't need to apologize for that.
Okay, yeah, that's true. I'm in good company. 20 years in manufacturing.
Right.
I'm just always amazed at what we can do. I think the robotics is the one that most excites me, and watching the dog, and
right.
we've got a couple of people doing dogs, and especially there's a booth here of kids who have won the FIRST Robotics. So FIRST Robotics, I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Yeah, we sponsor a number of teams.
Awesome. Yeah, and our founder, Dean Kamen, founded FIRST.
Oh, really?
30 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, and so Dean Kamen is the head of ARMI. He's the executive director. And but watching these kids and what they do, and it's not just they're doing the FIRST competitions, but they're also out there doing public service for other folks. They're creating prosthetic limbs for people who can't afford them otherwise. I mean, it's a great way to give back.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing to watch all these students walking through the Smartforce Student Summit. It's been just thousands and thousands. They come by, they stop by the studio, they look in the window, they're checking out who our guests are, even coming by a couple of them for autographs, which is kind of fun to watch. But it's been so much fun. And when you're thinking about these students here, as some are walking by here, I can see them about sophomores in high school, 15, 16 years old. You've been through the manufacturing world. You're now doing amazing things in biotechnology. If you were able to give Julie one piece of advice to a high school sophomore as they're thinking about their future, the sophomores that are here with us at IMTS today, what would that piece of advice be?
I would say stay curious and try a lot of things. You'll figure out what you like. I didn't know I liked computers, and it was about my sophomore year in high school.
Yeah.
I had a great teacher. It almost always starts with a great teacher.
I agree, yeah.
And so thank you to all the STEM teachers out there, because God bless you. You are doing God's work. We need you.
Yep. More of them.
But I programmed I simulated a lunar landing.
Yep.
On a computer, and I was like, this is really cool.
Right.
I can tell the computer what to do, and it'll do it for better or worse.
Yep.
Even if I'm wrong, it'll still do it. And so I would just say, try different things. That's the best way to find out, and don't be afraid to fail, because you're going to try something and it might not work. But if you're really turned on by it, you can probably find the programs that will help you learn and get to the point where that's what you can do for the rest of your life, or at least, for part of it. Get started in.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say successful people are just people who stood up one more time than they fell down.
That's so true. I can't even count the number of times that's happened for me.
Failed at all kinds of stuff. But just
you're not
going.
failing. You're not stretching. You're not trying new things. You don't know what you can truly do until you failed.
Yep, and your organization is an absolutely great example of that, of stretching what's into what's possible. I've learned some things this morning that I didn't even know were going on. I'm sure you hear that all the time. I had no idea you could do this. Where that technology is going, it's so invigorating, so exciting, and really appreciate you coming on, Julie, and telling us a little bit about it. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.